Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Justin Leopard, your online cello teacher, here today with High Arts to talk to you about playing in an orchestra, what makes that different from other things we might practice as cellists, what makes that different from other modes of performance, what those modes of performance are, and then how to go about orchestra experiences with the best experience possible. So to start off with, playing in an orchestra is different from playing in other contexts, primarily because there's the most number of cellists and the largest ensemble that you'll probably ever be playing with if you play the cello. Maybe barring aside if you did some sort of big rock concert, but even then, probably if there's a bunch of people involved, then there's an orchestra, and if there's an orchestra involved, that means a lot of cellists. So in a chamber music setting, so chamber music is a term referring to when music was played at like more like in rooms, chambers, that sort of thing, as opposed to big concert halls. So chamber music is like string quartets, but it can also be piano trios, which is piano, cello, and violin. All sorts of different other arrangements. Some are more standard than others. And when you play chamber music, it's kind of like everybody's equal soloists, as it were. There's not like accompanying musicians and lead musicians. Everybody kind of has an equal role in a chamber music situation, and each one of those players is going to be 1-2 apart. So even if there's 2 violins or 2 cellos in the group, they're going to probably have their own part. And that's what makes chamber music different from soloist music, which is music that's either completely you playing, like the Bach solo cello suites, or solo in the sense that there's an accompaniment part and a performance. So one example of that would be a showpiece that has a piano accompaniment, and another example would be a concerto in which a whole symphony orchestra accompanies one soloist playing a lead part, like for example the Elgar cello concerto or the Dvorak cello concerto. You can also have a lot of different other setups, but I think many people consider those to be the big three. You have soloist playing, chamber music playing, an orchestra playing, where you'll have anywhere from, at the smallest, I would say 4 cellists, unless you're going really, really small, like chamber orchestra size, which might just have 2 or 3. Baroque orchestras are smaller, so they might actually only have 2 or 3 cellists, but if you're talking about a symphonic orchestra, the smallest section size you'll have is 4 cellists, and probably 6 or 8. The only time you'll usually have more than that is if you're dealing with non-professional orchestras. But professional orchestras typically cap out at 8 cellos. And they're having, up to like 70 people in the entire orchestra. It's a huge, huge production. So what that means, as far as what the differences are, sometimes what it means is that the music is simpler. That's not always what it means, though, because some of the orchestra rep is as difficult as any of the solo rep, like, for example, Don Juan. And some of the most difficult pieces that are part of the solo or the orchestra rep will be the pieces that are used to audition for orchestras. So things like Beethoven 5, things like Beethoven 7, things like Brahms Symphonies 2 and 3. They have really nice cello moments. These are great pieces of musical literature for the cello, and they occur in the symphonic repertoire. Another difference, though, is that there's more of a hierarchy. So when you have a chamber group, ideally everybody's kind of contributing equally to that. And when you have a soloist, the soloist is sort of making the prime decisions. Now, normally in an orchestra situation without a soloist, the conductor is making all of the, or most of the interpretive decisions. That's a lot of the point of a conductor, in addition to beat conducting, is that they are the ones who are responsible for knowing the entire score, the entirety of what everybody's playing, and they're responsible for figuring out how it's supposed to sound. So then from that, you have section leaders. And the wind players, even though there will be section leaders. In the strings, the concertmaster or the principal first violinist is the most important string member, because they're the ones taking any solos for the entire orchestra, and they're the ones who are also supposed to really know the entirety of the score, kind of almost being an assistant to the conductor in that way. And sometimes they take more leadership roles like that. But for the most part, if somebody's speaking to the entire orchestra, it's the conductor. And otherwise, you're talking to your section leaders, and the section leaders are talking to the conductor, not to the orchestra at large. Exceptions would be if certain sections need to work things out, like, for example, cellos and basses have something together and they weren't quite lined up. maybe the section heads turn to each other and just discuss that privately in orchestra rehearsal. But again, you have to remember there's a lot of people involved here. So a lot of people involved is the reason for the hierarchy, although not all orchestras are doing that these days. But it's much harder because you have to have everybody equally invested. But there are some orchestras that play without a conductor. So the Orpheum Chamber, or if I'm saying that right, Orpheum Chamber Orchestra. Yeah, but they're huge. They have like 70 people, and they do it without a conductor, but they have a rotating way of doing leadership. So they have their own way of working it out, but it's much more complicated that way. So typically you have the hierarchy system. I just wanted to add that caveat that you don't need a hierarchy, but it is by far the more straightforward method, especially when players are kind of coming and going. You have players on different contracts in professional orchestras and stuff like that. So anyways, in addition to that, you also have to just realize everyone's time. So orchestra rehearsals tend to be pretty efficient, and ideally there shouldn't be time to be learning the part in an orchestra rehearsal. This is going to be a little bit different if you're like in your high school orchestra, because students often don't even have private lessons in a high school situation, or are just younger and it's harder to be as diligently practicing. Or if they are diligently practicing, maybe they think, oh, the orchestra music is sort of beneath them to practice. So for a lot of different reasons, people come to high school orchestra rehearsals having not practiced. But it is better and ultimately expected at a certain level to come in basically able to play your part. Because the point of rehearsal shouldn't be to learn the part. The point of the rehearsal should be to learn how everybody involved is going to play it together and have it make sense. Remember, music it's easy to, when you hear it and it sounds right, to think, oh yeah, that sounds perfect. That sounds exactly right. But in order to get that effect of it sounding right, a lot of specific things had to come into place exactly right. And it's the ability to have the creative vision to see how all of that fits together that separates great musicians from good musicians. And it ought to be the point of rehearsal of a good ensemble to be working so that everybody's collectively working towards a unified musical mission. So in actually playing orchestra music, some more technical details, if you see two notes at the same time, in solo music, we would play that. It's a double stop. We talk about that. But in orchestra music, it's common to divide. It's called divisi. So if you're in the cellos, there's going to be cellos that face the audience, and then there's going to be the cellos that are inside from that. So the ones facing the audience are the outside players. The ones inside are the inside players. The outside players will take the top note. The inside players will take the bottom note. And then there's different ways to divisi if it's more than that. Something else that you might not expect initially when you come in is that a lot of orchestra music will have markings written in different languages. And this is just because composers want to write things that are not just the Italian standard musical terms that you might learn on a musical terms sheet. So there's a lot of times you get German, or a lot of times you get French. And so good orchestra players will see a term that they don't understand beforehand, and they will look it up so that they know what it's saying, sometimes even write it in. And that brings me to the final thing that you want to do with orchestra music, because you're probably not going to remember everything you're supposed to do for orchestra music. Almost no one can. For example, if everyone decided they're going to do an up bow in a certain place, or everyone decided they're going to slur these notes, or the conductor had mentioned that you're not going to play the written dynamic, you're going to play softer, you're probably going to forget that in the performance. You're going to get caught up in the flow, and it's easier to read what's in front of you than it is to mix reading what's in front of you with something that you remembered. So always bring a pencil with you, always make markings. Just remember that everybody there wants to be seen as good, and so there's really no room for like ego in an orchestra situation. Everybody's coming there because they have a common interest in playing music. And I guess my final tidbit truly about orchestra playing is to not think that either you're too special for it or that you're too out of place for it. Just rise to the challenge of the occasion, be prepared for rehearsal, be excited to be part of making music, and I think your experiences will go a lot better than some ways that are possible to come into orchestra playing where it's a lot more egotistical. Even if that version of egotism is in feeling anxious or uncertain about your own playing, if you can find a way to just say, I might be anxious, but I'm gonna be prepared, and then I can at least be confident in my preparedness, you're gonna have a much better time. And then also, if you think, this is beneath me, these other players, they're not putting in their effort, well, that's fine. There's ways to lead without, speaking and sounding like a jerk. There's like coming in and actually playing your music well anyways, and then people hear that. Or there's having a good energy. There's just having a positive attitude that maybe makes people more willing to practice on their own. There's these little things you can do that try to help, and beyond that, there's not much you can do. So that's the beauty of playing an orchestra. It involves a lot of people. And in this video, we talked about some of the specific ways that working with a lot of people breaks down. Basically, it just boils down to music that is shared with a lot more people and doesn't tend to be as technically proficient as solo music, but there's certainly exceptions to that. Probably if you're learning cello, you're going to be in an orchestra at some point, and hopefully if you're learning cello, you get to be in an orchestra at lots of different points. So we really hope you enjoyed watching this video and got a lot from it, or getting a lot from all our videos. Please stay subscribed below Higher Hertz for more lesson videos. Once again, my name's Justin Leopard. You can find some of my playing. I'm on YouTube as the Vagabond Cellist as well. But for now, we will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.